Hello all and welcome to episode 37 of the newly named 3 for 1 Sky Fantasy Podcast by Fantasy Football Hub as we look ahead to Sky Gameweek 20 with the overhaul creeping up on the horizon. My name is Andrew and I'm joined as usual by two of the most successful Sky Fantasy managers in the game. Firstly, Paul McAnulty. How did Gameweek 19 treat you, Paul?
It was okay. I got through it without any transfers, which I think is the main thing, and not dropping too much. So, it was okay.
So you slipped a little bit in the ranks. You were just inside the top 100, and I noticed you've slipped a little bit, but no cause for concern, though.
Yeah, no. My second team was loaded with transfers, and I actually give you an assist for this because we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. Where you looked at my team and you're like, if I had that many transfers, I would just load it with City. So then and there, we made the 5 transfers, and I'm now up to 400 with that, still with an army of transfers.
Oh, lovely. I
actually might put a bit of focus on that after the overhaul.
I think we said at the time as well, if we'd have had a discussion the night before, you could have even made 5 the one night and 5 the next, and it's literally gone all in on 9 or 10 City.
Probably would have done Sterling then, though.
Yeah, that's a fair point. We also have former Sky winner Dan Cox with us. Dan, how was your game week 19?
Yeah, pretty good as well, mate. Didn't have to make any moves. I will next week, but didn't have to make any moves, and still sitting pretty well. Good amount of transfers, so yeah, it's pretty good. It's just weird. I always find the FA Cup weekends and that a bit weird, don't they, when there's no Premier League football, and it's like, don't really affect. I know it does for Telegraph and Sun and stuff, but just like nothing doing, is there? You watch Salah, don't score against Burnley and then gets a goal or 2 today, and you're just like, score against Burnley, save it for the league or something like that. So pretty good game week. Cheers, mate.
I think the Villa game was quite a predictable game. When on Saturday night, a clean sheet, Watkins goal, and Grealish assist was probably about how they've been doing most of the season. I'm glad they held on to Martinez. He seems to. I feel, I don't know how you guys feel Martinez, but I feel really, really lucky with him because it was a coin toss. At the first overhaul between there was him, Patricio, Messi, and a couple of others, and we've managed to land on Martinez, and he's just been absolutely incredible. I think with his points alone, I think if I'd have gone for another keeper, I'd be way down. But he's
if you'd have had Patricio instead, I'd hate to think what the difference in points would be.
Exactly.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Just that one decision.
This is it. It's probably about 50 or 60 or even more now, I guess, actually, if you take the captaincy into account as well. Great stuff.
And like I say, if you like I say, people might not have had a Villa play yesterday, so they had to then bring someone in like Watkins or whoever. So you think it's saved your transfer, and if you'd have had him just from the overhaul, you'd been laughing, wouldn't you? So we've done all right. I'm still smarting from Lacazette. I've still got him in my team. I'm absolutely furious with myself for going with Lacazette. I could have gone for any Arsenal player and they would have returned anywhere. Even Tierney, who missed the first game, returned in the second game, but that really, really cost me. He's still stuck in my team. I was going to remove him last week, but obviously De Bruyne got injured and now Vardy's injured, so he's still kind of hovering around. I've got a decision to make there. And I've probably used 1 or 2 more transfers, I think, in this last week or 2 than I would have wanted, but we'll move on. Welcome everyone this evening. As we're live, please feel free to join in the chat at any time. Let us know your thoughts on the topics or the relevant sections, and feel free to ask some questions to us to answer at the end. We've got a full house this evening. My goodness, we've got over 100 watching already. Good evening all. Darren Skidmore, Owain Jones, Pete S, Jack Wilson, Ian Parrin, Mike Neve 81, Wondercat Venus, AD Tor, John Maloney, Bear, John White, Sussex Martlet, Brownie, who I see received your mugs, SDT Flower Pot Man, Steve Wright, Jack Wilson, Luke Skeletto, Tom Hartnell, Reese Bloomer. The list goes on. Welcome all, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. For any new watchers and listeners, if you haven't subscribed just yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and set the alerts so you don't miss our live streams, which are 9 p.m. every Sunday evening right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button. If everyone could press like now, that would be really appreciated if you enjoy our content. So tonight, Paul will share some bonus stats for us. Dan has got some interesting ownership and transfer stats. We will again take a look at Man City effective ownership, which is over the last 2 or 3 weeks in top 1K it's been absolutely ridiculous. We'll look at what to do with the now injured KDB and Jamie Vardy and look at potential replacements. We'll run through Game Week 20, which starts on Tuesday evening. We'll check in on Ian Parrin's fixture predictions, which I believe he had 100% right for those who checked in last week with us. We'll answer some Twitter questions, give some mini league updates, which I think we should spend a bit of time on the mini league updates.
I don't think we've got time for it, mate.
No, I think
we're packed show tonight.
No,
people aren't interested.
I think we should really focus this week. We'll have a look later, but I think we can spend a bit of time on that, and we'll finish off with Dan's rant. So a very, very busy one.
That's long evening as well.
It's long. Fantastic. Yeah. Look forward to that, Dan. So firstly, Paul, do you want to share some stats with us?
Yeah, so up on your screen just now, you'll see the bonus points for the last game week. I would never have guessed that Kovacic would be top when I selected it on FF Stuff's site earlier on today, but he picked up 9 points in the double game week just from bonus alone. So 6 points on successful passes and 3 points from tackles won. The 5 players from there that I wanted to give mention to, John Stones, obviously, he continues to build momentum in terms of transfers in, 8.4 million. He picked up 7 bonus points over the 2 game weeks. Paul Pogba has picked up 6, so he's picked up each of the bonus over the 2 games that he played. So tier 1 passing, shooting and tackling. Rodri picked up 5 bonus points, but that was just from the 1 game because he didn't feature in another. Reece James picked up, Dan's favourite, Reece James picked up 4 bonus points from the 1 game that he played in. And Thiago, who I know a lot of people moved in for the Liverpool game, picked up 5 points over the 2 games just from passing alone. Surprisingly, Diaz isn't on there. He has just been cut off because he got 3 bonus points picking up passing in the first game, but didn't pick up passing against Aston Villa, which was quite surprising.
Just on that, so I think I've noticed with City. So earlier on in the season, when Stones wasn't the partner of choice, Diaz was playing on the right hand side of the centre back pairing, and when Cancelo plays, he tends to go further forward then, and Diaz was kind of the man who was sitting deep and kind of spraying the ball left and right. Now that Diaz has moved into that left side and Stones is sitting there, Stones is the one actually, from what I've seen observationally, who is sitting in kind of the centre of a 3, and Diaz moved over onto the left hand side. So I do think that is probably affecting the output. So it's Stones who's kind of the pivoting kind of centre back, just spraying the ball left and right.
I felt it was kind of maybe the same in the Otamendi year as well, where Otamendi was racking up the passes, but when Stones came in, it was Stones that was receiving the ball then as well.
Yeah. I do, in terms of, I'm sure we'll mention it later, but we are going to be looking for Man City captaincy, both this week and moving forward. And at the moment, because of watching that, I'm personally on Stones because he just seems to be kind of racking up every week. But I'm sure we'll touch on that later. Anything else? Sorry, Paul, on the
no, that's it from me.
Okay, so transfers in and out, Dan.
So since last Sunday, last 7 days, the top 5 ins. John Stones, just mentioned, 16,000 teams he's come into. James Maddison into 13,000 teams. Ruben Diaz into 11,000 teams. Jack Grealish into 9,000. And Marcus Rashford into 7,155. The top 5 outs: De Bruyne out of 31,000 teams, Jamie Vardy out of 23,000 teams. No surprise, those two. Sad news, this one. Zuma out of 20,000 teams. Wow. He'd done so well for a little period. He was great, and just not even the starter now, is he? So that's a shame. But yeah, Zuma out of 20,000. Zaha out of 16,000. And then Calvert-Lewin, I think he's already scored tonight, out of 4,700. So that's top 5's ins and outs. I'll just go on briefly. Yesterday, there was over 8,000 transfers just on 4 Villa players that I could spot from FF Stuff. Grealish came into 5,000. Watkins came into 1,600. Martinez came into 889 and Barkley came into 423. So I think 8,000 transfers just yesterday on those 4 players. There's a lot of transfers going. And I did put it in my article, but there was, on the Liverpool night, Salah was benched, obviously caused a bit of concern, and people might have been getting rid of De Bruyne that night. But there was 5,000 transfers made just on on 7 Liverpool players: Mane, Thiago, Robertson, Fabinho, Matic, Trent, and then Alisson. So a lot of transfers, and that was after, because we got the transfer stats on the 20th, and then there's a good amount of transfers been made because we had the 2 injuries since then. So they're going to be, I'd say, at least a couple less in each tier, I think, next week when we get the stats.
I can remember a lot of people at Christmas time saying, "I'm going to make this one transfer on the 28th, and then that's it, I'll overhaul." It's incredible, isn't it, how it kind of how it plays out. But I do think Man City defence specifically have had a massive say in terms of the transfers used in January. If you hadn't jumped on them, you will have fallen. It's as simple as that, because they've scored so many points. Their ownership is through the roof. But I'm sure we'll touch later on any kind of revised aspirations for transfer count at overhaul.
I'll go on to the ownership now if you want, mate.
Yeah,
because as you just said, so in the top 10 most owned of the top 1,000 teams, Cancelo, Stones, and Diaz all feature in the list.
Oh, wow.
So it just shows you. But I'll go through the numbers. So this is all from FF Stuff. Amazing site. He's partnered with us now. We're taking him out for a few drinks, and we made it official, aren't we? So Bruno in 99% of teams. Fernandes. Diaz in 81.5%. Salah in 76%. Grealish in 66.1%. I think you remember that had gone down to, I can't remember the exact figures, but I know that had dropped down a few week or so ago. Yeah. Stones into 64.4%. Kane into 62.7%. Cancelo into 60.8%. Stuart Dallas still holding in there, 53.7%. Antonio, he's rocketed up, 52.3%. And then Martinez, 44.1%.
That Antonio move, you were right last week, Paul, and I was wrong, because I said there's no way his ownership will go up to 30 or 35%. I suppose it just proves the engagement of managers in the top 1K, because didn't it shoot from 8% to 50% in 3 days, which is absolutely crazy. I don't think I've ever seen a 40% rise on a player in 3 days, or 2 days, wasn't it? It was on the Sunday till the Tuesday.
A lot of them will be players that were outside the top 1,000 and then captained Antonio.
Oh, and then moved in, maybe. Yeah, fair point.
But it's still there will have been a lot of transfers used on Antonio.
I think he's now, if you don't have him, he's a major concern for you, isn't he? Like being in, over half of the top 1,000 teams. The
one thing I would say is that I'm not saying that people definitely wouldn't captain him, but if you look at the days that they play, I don't necessarily think that he'll be the most captained player in those days. So it wouldn't be too bad from that respect, I don't think.
No, true.
And average remaining transfers, Dan?
Yes, lovely. So, as I said, this is from the 20th of Jan. So this is before all this De Bruyne, Vardy, and Villa play yesterday. So the top 10 was 11.6. The top 100 was 15.5. Top 1,000 was 16.9, and the top 5,000 was 15.9. So I'm really interested to see what they are this week, because I think each category is going to be at least 2 transfers down. So be interesting.
I'd probably agree with that. Yeah, it's been a busy old week, and I was thinking about this earlier. Actually, is like a lot of teams have still got 4, and some have even still got 5 games until the overhaul. So I know it. Everyone's kind of saying, I'm locked in now until overhaul, blah, blah, blah. But with the quality of managers in the top 1K, and the incessant switching around of fixtures, needing to jump on the best players, on the best captains and stuff, 5 games is, 5 games is such a long time. I had to look back to 5 games ago, and if you remember, like how long have Arsenal now been superb in defence, right? But 5 games ago, they lost 1-0 at home to Burnley. That's how long ago it was. And in the same week, Man City drew 1-0 with West Brom, so that their clean sheet run hadn't started then either. So that's how long 5 games ago is. We've still got all that to go as well. I think that all of us, including myself in this, that I think if we think that we're locked into an overhaul, I would argue that we're going to be throwing some curveballs still, whether it be COVID, whether it be a fixture rearrangement, a rogue captaincy that lands somewhere, a stellar injury. If Bruno gets injured, right, that's okay. We're all in the same boat, but he covers off a fair few captaincies until the overhaul. So, but yeah, just an interesting or not observation there, depending on how you take it. Paul, do you want to give us an update on Man City's effective ownership?
Yeah, so I think it was just under 2 defenders per team in the top 1,000 last week, and that's moved up to 2.36. So, like I mentioned on last week's pod, the way I think about it then is if you own 2 Man City defenders, you don't want them to keep a clean sheet because you're likely to drop in value, in places. Whereas if you've got 3, then you do. Now, what's interesting is that I think that the Man City defenders will be the most captained players on the days that Man City play now. So starting this week, they're away to West Brom on Tuesday, I think it is. Sorry. Yeah, they're away to West Brom on Tuesday. And I reckon Diaz or Stones will be the most captained player. If you own 2 Man City defenders and you captain one of them, so say you captain Diaz, I still don't think that you want them to keep a clean sheet. Because I think on average you would drop. So if you think of, if we said that of engaged managers, say over 70% of people captain the Man City defender, which I think is very likely.
Yeah, I think so.
Then the effective ownership is over 300%. So over 3 defenders per team. So even if you're captaining, you're one of your 2 defenders, your effective ownership's 3 defenders, double for your captaining and a single for the other. So you're likely, on average, to drop if City keep a clean sheet, even with you captain and a City defender, which I think is crazy.
Yeah, I can look on there as well. I can see that De Bruyne is still owned by 41% of the top 1K. So that's 410 managers still have De Bruyne in their team. So just moving on then, I suppose, to the elephant in the room. We've had a lot of questions on Twitter, but kind of what to do with De Bruyne and Vardy. So I moved De Bruyne onto Robertson on Thursday. So my plan was to move him up to Salah, but obviously Salah didn't start, so it's an opportunity to move on to Robertson. So that's what I've done. I've still got Vardy as well, so I've got to decide what to do with Vardy. But in terms of replacements, lots of comments in the chat already around a replacement. Scott McDonald Drums, is Maddison a good shout? Scott McDonald Drums also says maybe Pogba. Auto-Reclose says Barnes. Tom Hartnell prefers Tielemans or Maddison. Scott also says Gundogan as well. So and I know that I jumped on Rodri, who's been okay. These kind of bonus merchants. Dan, come to you first. What are your thoughts? So I know in your article this week, you put some options out in your members article, but what are your immediate thoughts on what to do for managers who have got either KDB Vardy or KDB and Vardy?
I think a lot of people, if they got both of them, might be thinking like, oh my God, but I actually think it's quite good. I'd even put in my article, like you could even then make a third transfer and really like spread it out, or do you can have a sort of a mini overhaul, can't you? Because you've got 2 transfers to definitely make, and you could upgrade someone else. So there's so many good options that are just banging form at the minute. Pogba been unbelievable, 40 points in the last 4 games. Would he keep it up? Do you know what I mean? That's just always the worry with Pogba. When he plays and he's on form, he's probably one of the best picks there is. But whether we can rely on him, but I think he should be sound to the overhaul. Pogba. If you haven't got Antonio and you're worried that he's in over half of the teams, you can bring him in. There's so many options. Depends. Like if you didn't have Salah, you can now bring him in. There's so many. Anyone from Manchester City, if you've only got Stones or Diaz, get Cancelo in. Or do you know what I mean? There's so many options. Like I'd put Nyark as well, like Maddison, even like Wan-Bissaka. I think he's not a bad little shout he's got some good points in his last few games, tackle bonus, and I think he's got an assist in the last 4. He's only 0.4% of teams. I was looking at the percentages of them. They're all really low owned. Pogba on Friday night was in 0 of the top 1,000 teams. He's now in 0.6, so 6 people have brought him in this weekend when there's not even a game. Do you know what I mean? But Pogba's in 0.6, Tielemans 0.5.
Some penalties, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, he is. Maddison in 2.8%, Rodri in 7.2, Foden in 5.3, Barnes 2.3. They're all low owned. Do you know what I mean? So if you bring them in and they do something, that's gonna push you up. So there's plenty of options. That's why I did sort of say people I would wait, sort of thing. And now you got these 2 players you can take out, and you can really have a think about what you want to do. So plenty of options. Depends what your team formation is as well.
Dan Perry in the chat as well just had a good chat for Calvert-Lewin. So obviously, he's back. He scored this evening. He's back fit. Richarlison is fit. Dina is fit, and their fixtures for the next 4, basically, up until the overhaul, are really, really nice as well. So I think they've got, they've got home games next: Leicester, Newcastle, and they've got Leeds as well. Obviously, quite leaky as well. So he might be sheltered as well. I've got a question for you, Paul. I suppose, and it's a bit more of a strategic question about the kind of use of this, right? So, we mentioned a lot of low-owned players there. Depending on rank, just as an example, right? So, I'm doing okay at the moment. I'm kind of, I think about 120, 130th at the moment. I'm planning blocking moves on purpose to get rid of KDB and Vardy because I want to maintain rank. Is that something which you would do? And if someone's kind of not quite where they want to be, would you kind of suggest maybe going for a lower owned player at this point to try and catch up?
I play the game quite boringly, so I would.
The wrong person to ask.
Yeah, if I was getting rid of Vardy and KDB, which I had to do, then I made sure that whatever move I did with KDB meant that I could get Kane in for Vardy, so that it would limit the amount of transfers that I was using. In terms of the differential picks, at this stage, unless I was way, way off, I would still be trying to pick the captain that I thought had the best fixture. And then if I already had that covered, then use a differential pick to perhaps sit in the peripheral of my team. Like I'd say, I got Gundogan in 3 weeks ago to try and do that. I knew that City had good fixtures coming up. And it just so happens that a lot of people will be moving on to him now, KDB's injury. But I just still think that the overhaul is going to give a brilliant opportunity to reassess your team, have a think about what it is that you want to achieve at that point. And do you remember right at the very start of the season, we had penned in the Aubameyang to KDB move. If I was low on transfers, what I'd be doing is not, when I go into the overhaul, is to, one, make sure that I've not got future planned transfers in mind. I'd have, even if the person was injured or suspended for a game, I would pick the player that I wanted in at the overall team to save me a transfer down the line. Yeah, it might cost 5 or 10 points for the player that I would want in the first game week, but you will make up more points later on in the season with a transfer. Like I think the majority of times. And the second thing that I was going to say was I wouldn't be concentrating on the single game days now. So traditionally, the way that Sky managers, experienced Sky managers, we used to pick Dan like 4 or 5, 6 weeks in advance. If there was a Monday night game and the overhaul came about, we would pick a player for that game week then and there. As part of the overhaul then and there, make sure that you've got somebody locked in that you're going to use further down the line. And it's not like your Kanes and Salahs. It's perhaps, if it was I think it's Brighton Crystal Palace that's locked in on a single game day after the overhaul this time, picking Zaha or someone like that. Then I don't think there's a need to do that now because things change so quickly in this current environment and games could get moved here, there and everywhere. So those were the 2 things that I would do. That if I was short on transfers, I'd be using the overhaul as an opportunity to reassess that and thinking about differently to the way that we traditionally have done.
What do you think, Dan, about around if people are are kind of chasing in mini leagues, would you say just to go with the top 1K ownership? This is why this slide I've got on screen is so important, because if you haven't got me, I would personally maybe exclude Grealish and Dallas there from that top 8 or 9 as potential must-haves, because they haven't got captaincy requirements. And even though Grealish is kind of explosive, he's not massively explosive in the way he scores points with the rest of them are. But I'm looking to bring in Salah and Kane this week with my final 2 transfers until overhaul. But they're blocking moves to protect rank. Would you advise other people to maybe look at some of the people we've said, maybe like a Pogba or something like that?
It's so hard to say. I think I've got 9 of that top 10, so I'm pretty happy with that till overhaul. Yeah, it really depends. Like, where am I? 244 from 330 of 22 transfers left. So I'm happy to just sit with my team, even just drop down a little bit. But because I've got 9 out of 10 of them, I should sort of hold where I am. And I think, just get to the overhaul, and then the amount of transfers I got, then go for it after then. But yeah, it is hard. If you are a bit behind, then I probably would be looking at Pogba. Well, like I said, they're all low owned at the moment, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? So I'd probably be looking at something like that. I'd probably be looking more at what day could I captain him. Like, can you, are you going to captain Pogba over Bruno and make some gains that way? But then it's risky captaining Pogba, isn't it?
With 99% ownership for Bruno, flipping egg.
So I'm looking at the days until the overhaul with at least till the 4th. I think they're all pretty standard, aren't they? Man City player, defender, probably Bruno, Salah, could have Kane, Bruno. They're all pretty standard. Like, are you going to go against the most owned and risk going for a Pogba over Bruno? And
I think
that's hard. I'm just going to play it safe, like Paul does. Go with the numbers, most selected, obvious pick captain, and then just get to the overhaul and then blast it after then.
If you've got Stones, Bruno, Kane, and Salah, that covers every captaincy day until the overhaul, as the fixtures stand at the moment. We'll look at Ian's predictions in a minute, but if you've got if you've got those 4 players, I believe, looking at my plan anyway, that it covers.
I think what the fixtures that's out just now, that's right, and I think that the only one that will change is Saturday the 6th of February, because Spurs West Brom needs to move. So,
and that's the one that Leeds and Palace might move into, I think, one. But will
Manchester United's on the Manchester United Everton supposed to be the Monday, and that won't happen, will it?
Monday the 8th. We'll touch on that now. We'll look at Ian's fixtures in a minute. Just looking at 2 players actually. So Al England actually said Rodri or Gundogan for me. So we've got a comparison of Rodri versus Gundogan in terms of their performance from ffstuff.co.uk. Paul, do you want to run us through these stats?
Yeah, so it shows you the last 4 game weeks, and I think when looking at it earlier on, I came to the conclusion that on average they'll score roughly the same from now until overhaul. If you want like a steady stream of 5 points, then I think go for Rodri. So whereas Gundogan's range is probably bigger, so he I think if you're a safe player and you want to hold rank, pick Rodri of those 2. If you want the added spice of a potential haul, knowing that some games he will score less than Rodri because he won't pick up, because Gundogan doesn't tend to pick up passing bonus as frequently, but he is on penalties, so you know that he can haul, then go for Gundogan. So if you're a riskier player, go for Gundogan. If you like to play it safe, go for Rodri, I would say.
Looking at the fixtures, so the next 4 fixtures until the overhaul. Sorry, earlier on I said 5 until overhaul. It's 4. But even a double up, right? Because Gundogan without De Bruyne will likely be on penalties as well. I think Gundogan's a cracking shot. I got Rodri before Gundogan started to kick off, really. I think if I had the choice now, I go for Gundogan because he's been so unfortunate not to get more attacking returns. Again, you know, watching the games, statistically attacking, you know, he's had one-on-ones which have been saved. He's provided assists which have brought out really good saves. I think he provided an assist for Bernardo hit the post or something like that. So, you know, I think both of them are not a bad shout. If you're really struggling for a play, you know, some of the shouts, you know, for Calvert-Lewin maybe, you know, and some of other ones, I would just say if you're desperate to get rid of a player, Rodri and Gundogan, you can't go far wrong in these fixtures. West Brom, Sheffield United and Burnley, they're likely to pick up passing you get in all of those. They'll probably, you know, City will probably score some goals as well. I probably wouldn't advocate, you know, kind of wasting transfers on the players, just using them for the hell of it. But if you're actively looking for someone else, I think these two are really, really good shouts, personally. Dan, have you got a preference out of Rodri and Gundogan?
No, I put in my article like anyone from Man City apart from Jesus. Good shout.
He's awful, isn't he? I watched him in the FA Cup against Cheltenham. I know he scored at the end, but again, he's just the ball just bounces off him and he gives it away so much. I'm just not sure what's happened to him.
I don't mean to be harsh, but he's just not a player I'd ever put him aside. I'd rather have Gundog than him. Do you know what I mean? That's saying something there, but you just don't. He'll probably score 5 goals in the next 4 games or something now. But do you know what I mean? But yeah, Rodri or Gundogan, they're both. I don't think there'd be much between them, to be honest. So
no, agree. Okay, so looking ahead then, looking forward to Gameweek 20, which starts at 6 o'clock on Tuesday. So we've got Crystal Palace against West Ham, Newcastle, Leeds, Southampton, Arsenal, West Brom, Man City. So obviously we don't get to see the lineups for the Man City game there. Dan, firstly on the Tuesday, any captain or transfer thoughts there?
Well, yeah, I need to get rid of De Bruyne and Vardy, so Kane and a Man City, someone. But yeah, captain, Stones, Diaz, Antonio possibly, but probably a Man City.
Yeah, I do think the West Brom could score in this game, but I do think that Stones is guaranteed, like, you know, a 5-pointer minimum, if not a 10. But I think West Brom have got a knack of you know, I can imagine this getting a corner and a Jai just rising like a salmon and melting ahead into the top corner. But yeah, I'm not sure. They scored against them at the Etihad last month, didn't they, as well? So they have
knack. Andy Carlin Grant had another chance. Was it Carlin Grant had another chance?
I can't remember the chance, but yeah, I think they've got a knack of scoring, haven't they? Paul, anything different there? An easy one, I think. No. Wednesday, then we've got Burnley and Villa, the early kick-off, along with Chelsea and Wolves, Brighton and Fulham is at 7:30. And then Everton, Leicester, Man United, Sheffield United. Paul, thoughts on the Wednesday?
That'll be Bruno for me, I think.
Yep, had a rest earlier, came on and scored.
Yeah, and did you watch the game? He's the one that he teed up for Cavani. Where he hit the post.
What a cross that was. Yeah, I think he's probably a really good shot for captain, especially with 99% ownership in the top 1,000 as well. Thursday, Spurs and Liverpool. This is a bit more of an interesting one. Dan, Spurs, Liverpool.
Yeah, well, I'll have both Salah and Kane. So,
would you captain?
Either or.
Who's on at the moment? If you have to choose now,
Spurs are at home, aren't they?
Yeah.
I might go with Kane. Just because I just don't know. Salah ain't scored for 5 Premier League games, Eddie, or something like that. So I don't know. He's got to score sometime. I don't know. I'll decide on the day. Probably Kane, but there's a chance I could go with Salah.
Paul, are you on at the moment?
I need to move Vardy on, and I'm going to move Vardy on to Kane. So I think I'm edging towards Kane.
I think I'm the same. I'm going to move Vardy. So I think I'll be bringing Salah and Kane in. I don't own either at the moment because I'm stuck with bloody Lacazette, who I get the extra game out of actually on Tuesday. I'm probably just going to do Vardy and Lacazette to Kane and Salah. I think I'm going Kane at home. Salah, Liverpool even earlier didn't look quite right. 2 really good finishes by Salah. You can't argue there, but Spurs at home. Kane will have a decent rest. He doesn't play tomorrow night in the FA Cup, so I think that's probably a very good shout. I'll also have Robertson as well. So if Kane does blank and Spurs blank, I'll have a kind of a fallback of a Robertson Cleany there anyway. So no game on the Friday. Moving on to Saturday, early game Everton Newcastle. That would be a tempter for anyone for bringing Calvert-Lewin. That you couldn't ask for a better game there really. You've then got Palace and Wolves at 3:00. Man City, Sheffield United, West Brom, Fulham, Arsenal, Man United, Southampton, and Villa. Assuming everyone will be on Stones or Diaz again. Any kind of arguments there? Nope. And Sunday, early kick-off, Chelsea, Burnley. Then we've got Leicester, Leeds, West Ham, Liverpool, and Brighton and Spurs. So this is a bit more open, probably in terms of, maybe Salah, maybe Kane. I will probably go on to Kane away to Brighton there. I think West Ham are quite tight at the back. And obviously, Liverpool haven't been scoring a lot of games. Paul, thoughts on that one?
That would have been a great game for Vardy. You would have thought. If there was ever a game that you wanted to captain someone, so home at Leeds. Probably Spurs, having owned a Brighton defender once this season and never ever again. I know that they don't keep clean sheets, so
he got you that one, didn't he?
Their one clean sheet this season.
White, he got you that captaincy one where I wasted 2 bloody transfers on Ings and Wilson, whoever it was. You managed to get that. So looking now at Ian's fixture predictions until the overhaul. So these are for the ones that are not confirmed. Friday, the 5th of February. This is one to look out for. I certainly don't have a player from either of these teams, but he says, in the unlikely event of a required Friday night game, Newcastle versus Southampton is the only option. I'm having flashbacks of Wilson and Ings here again, so really hope that one doesn't go ahead.
Deja vu. And it was a Friday, wasn't it? And it was the reverse fixture. So
and we moved Ings onto Wilson, didn't we? And both got injured.
I'm hoping Ian is like Nostradamus in his fixtures. He's the only person I know who gets them 100% right. I'm just going with his in the unlikely event, and I'm just going to hope that doesn't happen. And if it does, I'm swerving it. I'm just not even going anywhere near it.
Yeah, Saturday the 6th then. So Villa and Arsenal have been confirmed, as has Fulham and West Ham. So, we'll have, so those who've got Antonio will have Antonio. Could even have Holding still, or Martinez or Grealish. You'd be fine there. Man United versus Everton likely to be scheduled for Saturday night at 8:00 if either team reaches the FA Cup 5th round. So United obviously did earlier. I think Everton, I'm not sure how the Everton game finished. I know they were leading.
3-0 up.
They're 3-0 up. So both of those. So that will be moved from Monday the 8th then, according to Ian. Sunday the 7th, you've got Wolves and Leicester, Liverpool and Man City. So obviously fine there in terms of having Salah or, I was going to say De Bruyne then, but Salah anyway. Spurs v West Brom cannot be played on Saturday the 6th, as Tottenham are playing the previous Thursday. It'd be interesting to see if that game actually is moved out onto the Monday, if that one is spare. But a lot of people will have Kane there anyway, which would be maybe a nice flourish before the overhaul. And as we've already said, if another Monday night football game is required, then Leeds versus Palace is the only possible non-televised fixture that could be moved. So those with Dallas may yet still land on their feet. Obviously, still 60% owned. So all these are obviously not confirmed as yet. These are, Ian's thoughts. As Dan has said, Ian has got a bit of Nostradamus about him. At the moment, he's been on fire. I think he had 100% of his predictions right last week. So well done there, Ian. Any thoughts, gents, on any of those days at the moment? I know they're not confirmed. It's hard to predict. Dan, you've already said if that Newcastle Southampton game on the Friday is on, you'll swerve. Paul, you think you'll swerve that one?
Yeah, I would not be getting someone in, especially not even especially because I wouldn't do it anyway. But if they moved out to the Monday, because you can always get the player, player playing, so you're not losing the fixture. Because if it gets moved back to the Friday, you lose the fixture from it. Even if it got moved out to the Monday, I wouldn't do anything.
Okay. Any other thoughts on those predicted fixtures? Any kind of potential slips or trips we haven't
I have, mate. So I've got Dallas. I could, when I'm taking out De Bruyne and Vardy, that then frees me up some money. I could upgrade Dallas to Rodri or something like that this week, but I'm not going to do it because I'm worried that if this Leeds game does then come on the Monday against Palace, I won't have anyone. So I think you could argue that Rodri probably scores more points than Dallas. I don't mind Leeds games, actually. They've got a new pitch been laid now, so they're not playing on a beach or whatever. So, do you know what I mean? Like, that is the only, like, I was considering it, but after seeing this, that it could be a potential game, I'm going to hold on to him. Because it's like the Villa, like we said Villa v Newcastle could go in this week, and it did. So that was why I held Grealish. So, that's the one thing I'm just thinking about, keeping Dallas just in case.
Leeds have just, like, you could see that their energy levels are down a bit, and the fact that they've just had a 10-day rest from games as well, from the Brighton game to the Newcastle game on Tuesday might do them good. Might see a resurgence from them.
And as you mentioned as well, their fixtures are okay, right? So they've got Newcastle left, who just look absolutely awful. You would I say expect a clean sheet because Leeds defence ain't the best either, is it? Leicester is going to be, obviously a really hard game. They're then home for the last two away. Home to Everton, home to Palace. So those Newcastle and Palace games, especially, I think are pretty decent. From and Dallas as well. He's popped in 3 goals in his last 8 or 9 games as well, right? He's always there for a goal or an assist as well. So he just looks really good value. Personally, I wouldn't move him anyway because you say Rodri, but will Rodri outscore Dallas by 20 odd points in 4 games?
Rodri will pick up on average 20-25 points from those games. You would think, like he might score. I know, but on average, you would think that.
Agree. Okay, so on to some Twitter questions, which we've had so many questions. Thank you so much. I don't think we're going to be able to get through all of them, but we'll get through as many as we can. So Tim Barry, if we are making any transfers before the overhaul, is it a no-brainer to keep topping up with Man City players, especially with Bruno and Kane covering the other game days? Shocked face. Dan, so we've touched on Rodri and Gundogan. I'd just say first off around the effective ownership is quite important there. If you've only got Diaz, for example, then I think it is worth it. Any other thoughts there, Dan? First off,
no, exactly what you said. Like if you've only got 1 or 2 of them, like got to be loading up. Like I took out Martinez for Edison because after that first clean sheet, I dropped with like 2 of them or whatever. So I was like, I need to get another one in. So I'd say just load up on him and do that to overhaul.
All anything different?
No, but Tim Barry. If anyone isn't having a particularly great season, Tim Barry always runs a second chance league with the new third team that you can select, starting from the overhaul. So So if you were interested in that, don't activate your team now. Activate it in the overhaul. Follow Tim Barry. Get added to the league. Really good initiative too.
Good shout, Paul. Question off Luke Wilson. This is a really interesting one. We've had a load of questions about this in the chat already. So with all the injuries and Man City's form, do we need to rethink the number of transfers we need left at overhaul? My aim was 20, but I'm thinking 15 or 16 should be the new target. I wonder if Luke is looking for a bit of a confirmation bias here, maybe. But Paul, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts on number of transfers? It's obviously position dependent, I say, is the first thing, but
I don't know that it is. What if you've got injured players, you obviously need, you've got 4 games worth of 4 games worth out of your players. So get the Man City players in, or if you need to cover captaincies. I spoke about Neto before, and I know a lot of people are still holding him. If I held Neto now, I would just hold him to the overhaul and use the transfers later on. I guarantee that we'll need transfers in the future. There's going to be games getting rearranged for single game days. It looks like we're going to continue on this basis of the Friday night games, perhaps 1 or 2 games getting moved on Friday night and all the games. Then I don't know that there's any point in having a plan of how many transfers that you've got. I would say for the next 4 weeks, use the transfers that you have to cover captaincies or injured players, and that should be your focus. I don't know that you need a number in your head to pick that up.
Dan, what are your thoughts?
Again, it's so hard, isn't it? Like, I'm pretty happy. I've got 22. I think I could, if anyone else don't get injured, I could have 20 transfers left by the overhaul. But then I've only got 14 rounds of games to use 20 transfers. Like, I can then, say, okay, that if there's going to be a Southampton Newcastle, okay, I'll bung in Ings or someone like that. But if he gets me 2 points, I could just use transfers just on 2 point the captains and stuff like that. So it is, I think 15 or whatever could be fine. It's really hard to say. It's just whether you can then use them extra transfers and the captains actually score you some decent points after the overhaul. But that is hard to say.
I've got a couple of thoughts on this. I think firstly, in terms of usage of transfers pre-overhaul now, I think as we mentioned earlier, right, so in terms of the value of a transfer, I think generally over the years we've kind of said that 10 to 15 points is generally a figure. I think it's more this year. I think if you look at the rate of points as it's going, it's probably going to the winner this year will probably smash a previous record, which I think Liam holds actually. But I would look now if you're thinking of making any transfers. So we made a good example earlier of Dallas to Rodri, for example. So for Dallas to Rodri to be a profitable transfer, it means that Rodri has to outscore Dallas by 5 points in every game until the overhaul. Now, I personally think that is unlikely because I think Dallas he's okay for bonus. He might get an odd clean sheet. He's quite attacking as well. He plays every single game. Rodri was rested last week. You would expect him to play every game into the overhaul, but he's normally good, Rodri, for between 5, 7, maybe 10 points max. I just can't see him outscoring. So I think that value of a transfer of 20 points is really important. I think as well, though, to back up the argument that I think we're going to have loads of single game days after the overhaul. So someone put in the chat, I can't see it now, Luke Chilito put in the chat that Liam had 15 at overhaul last year. I do think how the games are going to be arranged and staggered post-overhaul this year will be different from last year. If you think how it was, it was project restart, right? And there was basically games on, practically every day for 4 weeks. I think there was only 2 days out of 31 there wasn't games. I'd like to hope. Don't want to talk about politics or anything now, right? But you'd like to hope with infection rates going down now, that maybe we're come to the end potentially of whole games and teams, having to cause postponements of games. I'm not sure whether that's right or not, but that's a hope more than anything. But if you look at the teams that have got games to be rearranged, the teams are mainly Man City, Villa, and Spurs are the games who've got to have games rearranged in the future. You're very likely, I think, to have those players in your team post overhaul anyway. I would guess, and also if you look at how the fixtures fall from the overhaul till the end of the season, at the moment they fall weekly on a weekend. So they, the kind of Friday to Monday sort of thing, or Saturday to Monday, Friday to Sunday. I very much doubt we're going to see what we saw last year, where there was basically games every day. Because when there's games every day, you're going to have all these, Brighton versus Fulham games and all this stuff, right? So in terms of numbers, I kind of agree, Paul, that it's hard to give a number, but I think, in terms of what you need to be able to maintain control of your team, I think this is what the kind of the question, right? In terms of getting to the last day of the season in control of your team and thinking that you've got all the captaincies covered, or most of them covered, right until the end of the season. If you think there's 14 game weeks left after it finishes, even if you use one a game week there, as long as you structure your team right, so you're not having to use 2 to get in 1 and all this kind of stuff. I think probably 14 is the absolute minimum, I would say, just purely based on that. anywhere between 15 and 20. I think you're nicely in control. I think if you're in a really good position and you've got 20 odd left, or 20, 25 left, personally, I think if you're in the top, I don't know, it depends on your objectives, right? So if you want to finish in the top 1k and you're around 3 or 4k and you've got 20 transfers left, put yourself in a really good spot. If you're in the top 100 or 200 and you want to try and win the whole thing and you've got 20 transfers left, you're in a really good spot. But that's just my, I suppose, on it. I would think as long as you've got a transfer a week, kind of stick to that, to remain in control of your team, to have the best captain for every game day, and make an odd luxury transfer every now and then. I think you're good. You guys think I'm
No, I think that makes sense. Last 10 games, Rodri scored 54 points and Dallas has scored 52 points, and we think that Man City have been smashing everyone, and that Leeds have been playing pretty poor. And the fact that there's 2 points difference between the two of them.
I think that's
that, mate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So hopefully, Luke and everyone in the chat, that kind of answers the question. Quite a lot of detail there. Tom Sky FF asks, I've still got Rob Holding. Will you guys be picking him post-overhaul? Interesting question there. Dan, Holding post-overhaul, 6.4 mil?
I haven't given, after the overhaul, slightest thought as yet. I just want to get to the overhaul first. If he's, like you said, there's so much can change in, 4 weeks in there. Because when it was coming up to them 2 Arsenal single game days, it was like, God, do we want anyone from Arsenal? And then as it was coming to it, was like, God, we want like Holden or Tierney or someone, So I haven't looked at it. He's great price. I do think he's probably number one now, but I haven't looked at Arsenal's fixtures after the overhaul, whether they're, on the hubs ticker. I haven't looked whether they're at the top or the bottom of that.
They're right at the bottom, right? So their first 6 after the overhaul, their first 6 back, they got Man City, Leicester, Burnley, Spurs, West Ham, and Liverpool. So if you're having him as like a long-term hold until the end of the season, you're probably all right. But those first 6 back are pretty horrific, I think.
I'll keep him now. I've got him in my team now. I'll keep him now to the overhaul, definitely. But like I said, I'll just concentrate on let's just get to the overhaul and then let's see what happens then and what fixtures we got and form and injuries and stuff. But yeah, just concentrating on now.
Paul, any overhaul thoughts at all yet? We've had a question as well off FPL heavyweight as well.
Well, the fact that the first game week after the overhaul, so they've said that like there's 4 games being announced for TV, but all the 3 o'clock games will move as well. So like, I am looking at single game days 3 or 4 weeks down the line, but in the first week, if there was a single game day, I would be picking a player from it, most likely, unless it's Brighton.
I think the only thing, I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, I think the only thing I will probably be looking at is just going kind of heavy at the back, because in the first half of the season there's like a general trend. I think towards the end of the season, it's all about results, right? It's not about winning 4 or 5-0. It's all about getting the 3 points. And if you think the league could be so incredible, because it is 5 or 6 teams, who have all still got a realistic chance for the title. I think it'll be keep a clean sheet, try and grab a goal, get the 3 points, and move on. So that's my only.
If you are going heavy at the back, assuming that it'd be like 5-3-2 formation. On that basis, if I was looking at that, I would make sure that I could get to any player in one move. So the way that Ian Parran sets out his team. So, if you found that you needed Kane up front and you didn't have him in your overall team, I would plan to have the cash in the bank to be able to do it.
Pretty good point. Benny Blanco, in hindsight, so I think this caused a bit of a debate on Twitter this afternoon, but in hindsight, should Sky have given players additional transfers this season, knowing that there would likely be more single game days in disruption due to the pandemic? Dan, what do you think of that?
Yeah, they could have done, like if it was all sort of before the start of the season. But I think we got caught out last year, didn't we? Because we'd sort of used transfers throughout the season as normal, like we normally do, and then because of the chaos, that's when we all got stung and we didn't sort of manage a top 100 or whatever it was. I think we were on course for that. But that's what I think I took into effect. Like at the start of the season, I did think like not getting caught out like that again. So that's why I've made sure I'm really sat with my transfers this season, because I just don't want to be stitched up with it sort of thing. But yeah, they could have gave you another 10 transfers at the start of the season, but you still have them people that are probably in the top 100 without any transfers. It always happens. But, that rewards the sort of, I'd say everyone who listens to this is an engaged manager, knows what they're doing. So I think we should benefit from it, really. Do you know what I mean? The chaos and stuff, you can always sort of find a way through it. But no, I'm happy with 40 at the start. I thought it might be like this, but no, I'm happy enough with 40.
Do you know, see, I've spoken a bit before about Antonio's price point. So Antonio's 8 million. This is going to come back to that question. So Antonio's price point's 8 million. And the reason that he's 8 million is because he's injury prone. Because if not, he would be a 10 million player in it. Or everybody would have him. The reason everybody's not got Antonio is because you get 40 transfers a season, and if you're almost taking a gamble sometimes with Antonio, knowing that it's one precious transfer of 40 to get him in, and it's one precious transfer of 40 to get him back out if he gets injured, and hence why his ownership isn't 100% in the top 1k, because he is one of the best Sky players in my opinion, especially at that price point. So if you were to open up more transfers, I think that it would be easier to bring him in, and his ownership would be much higher, and therefore there's less of that. Again, to the point that you were saying there, Dan, if you're less engaged, that helps those less engaged. Now, if the ploy was for Sky to get more people engaged in the game and last longer in terms of their thoughts, then I agree opening it up, because I used to love that one captain move a week, and then you utilise your transfers to get an additional captain. You have to think about it more, but I understand a less engaged manager would not be interested and would fall off from that point of view. So I think it's important that they keep the transfer count.
Yeah, I agree. I think from an engagement view, it's important to keep everyone interested, because, as you say, people would get bored by October and knock off. But I think I would say from a purist perspective, the less transfers for me, the better. The whole skill in this game is discipline and planning, right? The hardest thing is to do nothing, as we all know, as I know probably better than you guys, because I struggle to sit on my hands as well as you do. But that's the skill of the game. The whole skill of the game is discipline and planning. So for me, I played the games in the past. I think I played the Telegraph years ago when you had 6 transfers over the whole season. Now imagine how careful you had to be when you had 6 transfers. Played Sun Dream Team where you had 2 transfer windows, 3 in October and 3 in February, and that's all you had all season. So I prefer that, but I can understand the argument for keeping people engaged, because if you didn't, the numbers of the game would fall off, and they may even stop the game, right? So okay,
you have got to sit on your hands. So like I said, Salah on Thursday.
So hard.
I was happy just to, he was going to come on. I think it was a good chance he was going to get some minutes. And it was just like, I'll take the 2 points as a captain rather than use a transfer and bring someone in. Do you know what I mean? But Twitter's
a painful place when you're doing that as well. Right?
It's a quick question off Todd. I know you guys have said you're not really thinking about overhaul, but is there one player who you currently don't have who you will want in the overhaul? Have you got like a nailed on player who you don't have at the moment?
Don't think so.
Again, I've not looked at the fixtures, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think all the must-haves at the moment are probably in the side, right? So I think for me, Stones, Diaz, Bruno, KDB, and Salah are probably the kind of ones at the moment. Maybe Antonio actually. If he can stay fit at his price, he's absolutely amazing value. But yeah, it's quite hard to say at the moment. Owen Kinnear asks, red sauce or brown sauce? Dan?
Depends what you're having, what you're eating. Bacon sandwich, sausage sandwich.
What do you have on your bacon sandwich, Dan?
Bacon, tomato.
How about you, Paul?
Brown sauce. The only time I'd eat ketchup's on like a hot dog or something like that.
Okay.
I have hot dogs in Scotland.
I have both, believe it or not, and it was inspired by Gail Platt on Coronation Street years ago. She was in Roy's Rolls about 15 years ago, and she walked in and said, "Oh, I'll have a bacon roll, please, Roy." And he said, "Red or brown?" And she went, "Both." And I thought, "Both, you pig!" But then, do you know what? I tried it, and you get the best of both worlds. I have the red on the top, brown on the bottom. Try it, mate. It is an absolute game changer.
Not just fantasy advice here.
Not just fantasy advice, absolutely not. Last question of Kelvin at Guest Chef. With Villa's extra games, are they worth transferring in before the overhaul? I've not got any at the moment. Probably a bit late, I would say. Did have Grealish, but he's walking a tightrope on 4 yellows. Barkley, Watkins, any thoughts? I would have thought the time to get him in was yesterday personally.
Yeah.
If not, who's your favourite Villa asset if you could choose?
I'd have had Watkins. I think if I was into that sort of thing, I'd have gone Watkins yesterday. I think I know people talk about Barkley and stuff.
If I was into that sort of thing,
into that sort of thing, brilliant. Luke says brown, surely. Norman Conquest, red sauce with chips, brown with bacon. Steve Cheek says mayo with chips, and Glenn says, "Do you get square sausage in England, Dan?"
Don't know what that is.
Well, that is square sausage. It's probably like a patty or something, is it? I'm not sure.
Lawrence sausage, that's incredible.
Is it? Okay, let's have a look at our mini league. So, firstly, we've got the Fancy Football Hub £500 mini league. In 10th place, Colin Price. This is as of last night. 9th place, Stuart Bullow. 8th, James Till. 7th, Benjamin Lee. 6th, up 4. So, we had a hell of a day yesterday. Liam Gray. 5th, Sean Robertson. 4th, Peter Brown, down 2 places, Peter. 3rd was Oliver Colgan. 2nd, Pete Kemp, who I believe, looking this morning, is 9th overall. So very well done, Pete. And 1st, Kerry Vintis, Lalanas in Pyjamas, on 1,906 points, who I have had a look this week, and either he or she was 3rd. But 1906 points, absolutely incredible. So really, really well done. Obviously, well done to everyone in that top 10. Absolutely incredible. I think in this league, 40 are in the top 120 or something like that. It's absolutely crazy. So very, very well done there. And onto the most important slide of the evening, the Four Nations League. In 8th place is Liam's second team. In 7th place is the FFH podcast team, which I am keeping going only just. It's up to 3,000 now. I did put in Watkins yesterday, so that was pretty good. 6th place, House Husband's Faith, Paul McAnulty. 4th and 5th, Dan Cox. Slightly off the pace of the top 3, but I believe he does have some transfers in hand, so he's looking good there. In 3rd place, Liam Dorrian, reigning champion Liam Dorrian, who is joint second actually with Paul McAnulty, Housewives' favourite, Paul on 782. But at the summit, we have a new contender who hasn't been there since I think about game week. I want to say 8 or 9. I think it's been Scotland nearly all the way. I think Dan, you held it for 1 week, didn't you?
And then, I think I had it for a night.
No, 1 night, and then Paul took over. But Andrew Ferguson, Fergie Times team, flying the Welsh flag.
Just think if he had done that holding move, Dan, instead of Lacazette,
don't.
where he would be.
So I worked out yesterday, and this was before Martinez. So, obviously 18 points yesterday. A lot had Grealish yesterday. If I'd have gone hold instead of Lacazette, I would have been, I worked out 51st yesterday, plus Martinez. So I'd probably be in about the top 40 odd now, which just makes me...
Don't do it to yourself.
Makes me sick, mate. It's like with the, Ings and Wilson moves earlier in the season, I think they were, all right, they were mess-ups, but out of the 5 players, right, so there was Leno, Holding, Tierney, Saka, Aubameyang and Lacazette, 6 players there. I picked the one player who didn't do anything. If I'd have picked any of the others, it makes me sick. Anyway, that's not important. What's important is that the Welsh are currently top of the Four Nations League. And finally, Dan, what's upset you this week?
Jamie Vardy, right? I'm never putting him in my team again. I hope he retires this summer because I'm fed up with him, right? When I don't have him, he scores hat-tricks against Man City and all sorts. When I bring him in, like, he can get an assist and he'll 2-foot the corner flag. I'm sick of him, right? And I was watching a bit, this probably ain't putting me in a good light. I was watching a bit of Dancing on Ice earlier, right? Because his missus is in that. And she was banging on about how he's been helping her put her fake tan on and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, don't worry about a fake tan, stop putting them. So
Get
anyway,
down the
he's
training
annoyed
grounds,
me.
then. Flipping heck.
No, so that he's annoyed me. Never having him again. Done with him, right? What else has annoyed me? So, what ain't annoyed me? I've got a little story. Well, I've got a story about my son, right? He's only just turned 6, right? He loves the first 3 Star Wars films, yeah? Loves them. So I thought, do you know what? I'll put on Indiana Jones for him, right? The first one, Raiders Lost Ark. He'll like that. You know, apart from with the geezers getting his face melted off and stuff, I'll distract him that. I put it on, right? For about 3 days, I've had him asking me why Han Solo's looking for lost treasure in Egypt. Where's Chewbacca? That ain't been with the one like he's going on. I'm like, no, this ain't. It's just too hard now. So I'm like, I can't like. So that was a bit of a story, right? And the other morning, he likes Fireman Sam. Yeah, God, that's annoying. Have you ever watched that? You must watch that, Fergie. You got kids a bit older now, but
it's based in well, I say it's based in
you're
fictional
basing it near
Pontypandy. It's like the worst. They got the worst Welsh accents I've ever heard.
That's a disgrace to Welsh people. That accent.
Yeah. Their accents are dreadful.
That Norman Price. Yeah, he's so annoying. Fireman Sam. Like, I'm like, what is that? You know. Anyway, my son loves it, right? So I got up the other morning. I'm tired. I've been watching like Netflix till too late, like 2 a.m. or something. Wake up tired anyway, go downstairs. He's got the old Sky remote and he's say like Fireman Sam. And then it loads it up, right? So I make a cup of tea, just sitting there like, oh, tired. We're watching it. Fireman Sam. I'm like, God, did I have any beers last night? I can't. And what? We're watching the Welsh speaking one. That's called like Sam Tan or something like that. And he's sitting there watching it and I'm watching like, they ain't speaking English. Like, what's going on? Get that off. So that was another one. And I think that's it, me, really. I told you that story, didn't I? I don't know. If you haven't watched that Cobra Kai thing on Netflix, you might not get it. You watched it, if you watched it with your kids.
Yeah.
But if anyone watched that Cobra Kai thing, might be, most people know what I'm gone about. But like the main character in the old dojo, if he's telling everyone to be quiet, like if they're getting on his nerves, he'd be like, quiet! Like he'd do it like that sort of shout. And my kids sometimes like, and I'm like, come on, boys, just quiet it down. So I did it to them in the morning, like, quiet! And they were quiet. And I thought, cool, that's good as gold. Do you know what I mean? Then the missus, she was going on about something that I think made the front room a bit of a mess. And she came and she was going on. And I just went, quiet! To her, because I thought this will be well funny. She was ready. She weren't happy. Oh. So, don't do that to missus. She didn't go down well.
I certainly won't, mate. Don't worry, I'm gonna.
Well, I thought it's funny. I'm not being an abusive partner. Don't worry. Do you know what I mean? But I just thought, cool, this will be funny. Like the kids know what I'm going on about doing this impression. But yeah. And if you haven't watched Cobra Kai, you don't know what I'm talking about. Just ignore that bit.
Yeah, it's.
I think that's me.
For Fergie's hairdryer, I haven't really got many. I've had quite a chilled out week. I had quite a decent fantasy week, which always leaves me nice and kind of nice and chilled. I think the only thing, so I was watching Liverpool and Man United earlier in the FA Cup. I tell you what was brilliant to see is them really. It was a proper cup tie and a bit of bite and a few goals. How many times this season have we sat to watch, Man City, Man United, or Man City, Liverpool, or and it always ends up 0-0, absolute crap, no chances, rubbish game. It was great to see a few goals and also a few kind of meaty challenges. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. But when the players score nowadays, why don't they smile? Like Rashford earlier went clean through. Bent the ball in the corner, lovely finish, 2-1 up, FA Cup against your bitter rivals, and he actually looked like, he just farted or something. He's kind of went like that, and you're like, celebrate. In terms of like passion, beating your rivals. I don't know if they just think they're a bit too cool or whether lack of crowds is doing it, but I did start spotting it a few years ago when there was crowds, but when someone scores nowadays, they just have this thing of, oh, well, I'm just doing my job. I just, there's just nothing. There's no, like, it's very rare. If it's someone like, Burnley or or someone like that. They do. Like when Ashley Barnes scored the penalty on Thursday night, he was absolutely over the moon. You could see it meant so much to them. But when Liverpool or Man City smile a bit, Spurs are okay as well. It seems to be these youngsters at Man United. I don't want to kind of rag off just Man United. It's just the youngsters in general. They just score and go Martial's the worst. Have you ever seen Martial smile? Ever? He's just like, it's just his face. He's just like, he doesn't even want to be there. He's just like, oh. I think, give us a bit of emotion.
Like the old Shearer. The Shearer just like run with the old hand up or something like that. Or like, when Cantona did that chip against Sunderland or whatever in off the sort of post, wasn't it? He's just there like,
I think it was the Champions League final. I can't remember the year. I want to say 13 maybe. When Barcelona beat Man United. Was it 20? No, it was earlier than that. Actually, it was earlier. But I think Rooney scored, and he'd done this thing where he just slid on his knees. He scores in the Champions League final, and he just did this thing. He scored, and he stood on his knee, just went like that, and just gave like a grimace, like "Daddy cool." And then Messi scored, and he runs over to the corner with all the Barcelona team to the camera. They're just like, yeah. They're just like, it just means so much to them. I don't know if it's like a British thing or whether it's just I don't know, just pees me off a bit. I just think, celebrate. It's like, show some passion for your team. You just scored a goal in the FA Cup against your rivals. Show a bit, you just look grumpy all the time. I'll stop talking now. But I would say I did enjoy the game. I thought it was a really good, full-blooded affair right to the end, which was really, really good. Okay, so that is it from us for this week. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, supporting us, interacting with us as usual. One favour, could everyone please retweet the podcast when we tweet it out early tomorrow morning? That would be great. Dan, where can people find you?
Twitter, Dan Cox 82, and my articles on the Hub. If you're not a member of the Hub, please sign up. I put an article out on there yesterday with some Vardy and De Bruyne replacements and stuff, and it does support us and everything. So yeah, on the Hub or Twitter, Dan Cox 82. But just think whether you need to send me your team and what you should do. Every time someone sends me their team and what they should do, a fairy dies.
What's the password this week? Is it quiet?
Yeah, quiet.
Quiet.
You got to send me a GIF of it.
Paul, where can people find you?
At Paul McAnulty 1 MCANULTY.
Seb Fox says Adebayor was brilliant at celebrating as a Spurs fan. Absolutely, I'll never forget when he slid up in front of the.
He scored at the other end.
He scored at the other end. He ran 90 yards, didn't he? And did the old knee slide and the big grin in front of the Arsenal fans.
If I played Premier League football, which I probably still could just about do, if I scored, I would love to do that, but I wouldn't be able to run the whole length of the pitch. Would be any problem.
You'd be serving the hot dogs down with red sauce. That's what you'd be doing at the Premier League pitch. So this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub, Sky and TFF YouTube channel, and also available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please click the like button and remember to subscribe in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast version and leave some comments. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok are at FFH_HQ. Our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. So please feel free to follow and ask us any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top played team reveals, and much, much more. There was just a comment which struck a chord in me about commentators. Pete S. Oh my God. Danny Murphy. Oh my goodness. He was commentating yesterday. And I tell you who I don't miss is Mark Lawrenson as well. I mean, where do they find these people? Anyway, good luck to all our watchers and listeners this week. We will be back next Sunday. We'll be looking forward to Sky Game Week 21. Stay safe all and good night.